Imagine trusting a spreadsheet so blindly that it literally costs your entire nation a World Cup.
Yeah, it's wild.
Today we are looking at how a meticulously calculated, uh, you know, mathematically sound decision became the absolute final nail in the coffin for a football empire.
Right. It is the ultimate collision between sterile data and the just completely chaotic emotional reality of live sports. And I mean, the fallout from this is something we're going to be studying for a very long time.
For sure. Well, welcome to the Deep Dive. Today is Tuesday, July 7, 2026, and we have a really fascinating postmortem analysis to get into.
We do.
We are pulling from this Goal.com article by Christian Davis, and the title, well, it really doesn't pull any punches. It's called Brazil's World Cup Nightmare.
Which is fitting.
Exactly. For those of you listening, whether you track international football religiously or you just want a masterclass in how massive, wildly successful organizations can just spontaneously combust, this is absolutely for you.
Yeah, because the word nightmare almost feels too mild here, honestly. I mean, we were talking about Brazil, the legendary five-time World Cup champions.
Right.
They possess arguably the deepest talent pool on the planet, and yet they have just been unceremoniously dumped out of the 2026 North American World Cup in the round of 16.
Unbelievable.
Packed their bags, sent home by dark horses Norway, with Erling Haaland delivering his knockout blow, of course.
Of course it was Haaland.
Huh.
So our mission today is to figure out the why. We are going to explore exactly why manager Carlo Ancelotti's star-studded squad collapsed so spectacularly.
Right.
We're talking about aging stars clinging to past glories, data-driven misfires that will totally make you rethink your own reliance on analytics, and some highly controversial roster snubs that basically left the team structurally paralyzed.
Yeah, it's a mess.
By the end of this, you will fully grasp the anatomy of a sporting disaster. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the foundational issue. The actual players Ancelotti decided to put on the plane.
Yeah, the foundation of any deep tournament run is always the roster construction. Because the World Cup is, well, it's a unique physical gauntlet.
Totally.
You are playing high-intensity matches every 3 to 4 days. You're often traveling across multiple time zones, playing in varying climates. It demands just peak athletic endurance.
Right, the fitness levels have to be insane.
Exactly. And this is where the cracks in Ancelotti's plan were completely visible long before they even kicked a ball. The staggering age of the squad he selected is just, it's hard to ignore.
Yeah, looking at the numbers from the article, it genuinely reads more like a heritage squad than a team built for a modern summer tournament.
A heritage squad, yeah?
Like the 3 goalkeepers Brazil brought were 33, 32, and 38 years old.
Wow.
Now, goalkeepers can play a bit older, so maybe we give that a pass. But the defense is where the math gets genuinely alarming. The average age of the back line was 31.
Which is ancient in football years.
Yeah, right. We are talking about former Juventus fullbacks, Danilo and Alexandro. The author of the Goal.com piece describes them as relics of a bygone era.
Ouch.
Which is brutal, I know. But when you look at the modern game, it kind of tracks, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. In modern tactical setups, fullbacks are, well, they're no longer just wide defenders.
Right.
They are essentially expected to function as wingers in attack and defenders in transition, sprinting up and down a 100-yard flank continuously for 90 minutes.
It sounds exhausting just talking about it.
It is arguably the most physically demanding position on the pitch. So asking a 31-year-old to do that against a high-pressing, youthful team like Norway, I mean, it is asking for structural failure.
For sure.
And it didn't stop at the defense either. In the midfield, the actual engine room of the team, Ancelotti leaned heavily on 34-year-old Casemiro and 32-year-old Fabinho.
Wow.
What's fascinating here is the psychological trap that managers of elite national teams constantly fall into.
Oh, do tell.
Well, international management is entirely different from club management. At a club, you have the players for 10 months a year. You can drill tactics. You can test out young players, basically build chemistry over a long period.
Right, you have the time.
Exactly. But an international manager gets the squad for maybe a few weeks scattered throughout the whole year. Because training time is so incredibly scarce, managers crave certainty.
I see.
They lean on muscle memory. They select the known commodities, the veterans who have fought in the trenches with them, the guys with Champions League medals, the names they just implicitly trust to handle the pressure.
Okay, but wait. Isn't a manager's entire job description basically evaluating current form?
You would think so.
How does a legendary manager like Carlo Ancelotti look at a 31-year-old fullback or a 34-year-old holding midfielder and think, yes, This is a sustainable plan to contain a 25-year-old physical anomaly like Erling Haaland.
It's a great question.
It's like, for those of you listening,
Beautiful.
imagine installing a state-of-the-art operating system on a laptop from 2014.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right. The tactical plan might be brilliant, but the hardware simply doesn't have the processing power to execute it without completely freezing up. I just have a hard time believing a manager of his caliber just missed the fact that his hardware was outdated.
Well, the decline of a world-class athlete isn't a sudden cliff, right? It's a gradual slope. That is what deceives managers.
Interesting.
In a controlled training environment, a player like Casemiro probably still looks like a total genius. His passing is crisp, his positioning is flawless. The tactical intelligence never actually leaves.
So what does leave?
What leaves is that critical 5% of recovery speed, the ability to close down a passing lane in the 80th minute when your lungs are burning.
Right.
Ancelotti himself admitted after the exit that they desperately need young talent and high-level players coming into Brazilian football.
A bit late for that realization.
Exactly. He pointed to tiny flickers of hope from youngsters like 19-year-old Rayan and 25-year-old Danilo. But realizing your hardware is outdated only after the system completely crashes is a catastrophic failure of foresight.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that reliance on the old guard didn't just hamstring the defense. It created an even more damaging ripple effect up front when Ancelotti had to, finalize his attacking options.
Oh, yeah. The attack was a whole other issue.
This brings us to the most glaring example of prioritizing past glory over current form, the Neymar gamble.
You simply cannot conduct a postmortem on Brazilian football without analyzing the immense gravity of Neymar.
Totally.
I mean, he is an institution, but bringing him to this specific tournament was a massive roll of the dice.
Massive. Ancelotti basically caved to what the Goal.com article calls significant media and fan pressure,
Right.
naming a 34-year-old Neymar to the final squad.
Right.
And keep in mind, Neymar had not played a single cap for Brazil since October 2023 due to severe fitness issues.
He was completely unproven in terms of match readiness.
Exactly. And the ensuing disaster was just, entirely predictable to anyone watching closely. Neymar suffers a calf injury right before the tournament starts, so he's ruled out for the first 2 to 3 weeks.
Which means he is taking up a crucial roster spot while literally sitting on a treatment table during the most vital group stage matches.
Yep. He ends up managing a 14-minute cameo against Scotland, which the article brutally described as having the air of a testimonial match.
Wow.
Yeah, essentially a glorified retirement kickabout. He then sits out the Japan game completely to manage his fitness.
Unbelievable.
And then, when they finally deploy him in the do-or-die match against Norway, he is completely ineffective. I mean, he scores a late penalty when the game is already lost, but functionally, he was just a ghost.
It is a profoundly sad way for his international career to likely end. But, the real tragedy of selecting an injured Neymar isn't about Neymar's legacy.
What is it about?
It's about the opportunity cost. It's about who is forced to stay home just to accommodate that gamble.
This is the part that blows my mind. To make room for a fading, injured superstar, Ancelotti left 24-year-old Chelsea striker João Pedro off the roster entirely.
Such a mistake.
Let's look at Pedro's resume leading up to this. He had a massive debut season at Stamford Bridge in the Premier League. We are talking a combined 29 goals and assists in one of the toughest leagues in the world.
He was in the form of his life, no question.
Right. Even Ancelotti admitted in hindsight that Pedro probably deserved to be on this list.
That specific quote is going to haunt Ancelotti's legacy in Brazil for years.
I bet.
And the criticism didn't just come from the media either. The Brazilian icon, Ronaldo Nazário, a man who understands exactly what it takes to win a World Cup, came out publicly.
Oh, wow. What did he say?
He flatly stated that this elimination began with decisions from the bench, and he explicitly questioned the logic of leaving a dynamic, informed number 9 like João Pedro at home.
Man, when Ronaldo criticizes your striker selection, that is a heavy, heavy blow.
Definitely. And we need to unpack the tactical gravity of what Ronaldo is pointing out here. A true no-9 like João Pedro does so much more than just score goals.
Right.
He occupies the opposition center backs. He makes constant dynamic runs in behind the defensive line. That stretches the pitch and creates these little pockets of space for fast wingers like Vinicius Jr. to operate in.
Which Neymar can't do anymore.
Exactly. Neymar, at this stage in his career, especially carrying a calf injury, does not stretch defenses. He wants the ball at his feet to dictate play.
Makes sense.
The psychological justification is always that Neymar brings an aura to the locker room. But Ronaldo is highlighting the harsh tactical reality. Aura doesn't press the back line for 90 minutes. Form does.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Did Ancelotti essentially sacrifice his own job security just to appease the Brazilian media and, give a fading superstar a retirement tour?
It really looks that way.
Because from the outside, it sounds like he knew João Pedro was the better tactical choice. He basically admitted it. But it seems he just didn't have the political capital or maybe the managerial courage to leave an institution like Neymar at home.
Right. And making decisions based on political optics rather than actual performance metrics is a guaranteed way to compromise the structural integrity of your team.
Absolutely.
When you draft an injured attacker to appease the public, you force the rest of the squad to overcompensate. And that structural compromise was most evident in how the midfield collapsed under all that pressure.
Yeah, let's get into the midfield. Because when you leave your dynamic striker at home and your wingers are basically forced to drop deep to cover for aging, immobile fullbacks, the structural pressure has to go somewhere.
It always does.
It all fell squarely onto the midfield. The article paints a picture of a midfield muddle that was just doomed from the start.
The modern game is overwhelmingly won and lost in midfield transitions. If you cannot control the center of the pitch, you just cannot control the tempo. And Brazil showed up to North America incredibly light in that exact department.
They really did. The source notes they brought only 5 central midfielders initially.
Which isn't enough.
And that number is actually deceptive, because one of them was Lucas Paqueta. And Paqueta is really a number 10.
Right.
For those unfamiliar with the tactical jargon, a number 10 is essentially an attacker masquerading as a midfielder. They operate high up the pitch looking for killer passes. They are not the guys dropping back to the edge of their own penalty box to dig trenches and win the ball back.
Exactly.
So functionally, Brazil was playing a man down in the defensive midfield rotation from day one.
Which led to a massive, totally unsustainable over-reliance on Newcastle's Bruno Guimaraes. He was forced to do all the heavy lifting.
Poor guy.
I know. He had to break up opposition attacks, distribute the ball from deep, and support the forwards. He was functioning as a one-man engine room. And to his immense credit, he played brilliantly, managing 4 assists in the tournament.
He did play well, but you can't ask one human being to power an entire World Cup campaign.
No, you can't.
Fatigue builds up. And that fatigue set the stage for the defining, really catastrophic moment of Brazil's tournament.
What penalty?
Yes. The critical knockout match against Norway. Brazil wins a penalty. The game is hanging in the balance. Now, Vinicius Jr. is on the pitch. He is the team's leading marksman. He has been scoring all tournament. He is fresh, and he's confident.
So you think he's taking it?
You would assume he takes the ball. But instead, Bruno Guimaraes steps up, the exhausted midfielder who has literally been carrying the team on his back.
Yeah.
He strikes it. He misses. Brazil falls behind. They never recover. And just like that, they are out of the World Cup.
The psychological weight of that miss is immeasurable. But, the truly shocking part isn't the miss itself. It's the managerial justification that followed.
Ancelotti's defense of this moment is mind-boggling. After the match, he claimed the decision for Guimaraes to take the penalty over Vinicius was purely data-driven.
I still can't believe he said that.
He literally recited the spreadsheet rankings to the press. He said Rafinha was number 1 on the data list, Neymar was number 2. But neither of them were on the pitch at that moment.
Yeah.
So Guimaraes was statistically number 3, Martinelli was 4, and Vinicius Jr., again, their best player in the tournament, was apparently further down the historical statistics list.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this moment is just a masterclass in the limitations of sports analytics.
Oh, absolutely.
We live in an era where data dictates strategy across all sports. And over a massive sample size, say a 38-game league season, spreadsheets are incredibly accurate. They map out the true mathematical probabilities.
Sure, over a long season.
Historically, Rafinha and Neymar might be statistically better penalty takers. But a World Cup knockout match is not a large sample size. It is a highly volatile, hyper-intextual, singular vacuum in time.
It feels like trading stocks on a 15-minute delay. The historical data you are looking at is mathematically perfect, but the reality on the ground has completely shifted, and you are basically making decisions based on a ghost of a reality.
That's a great way to put it.
The spreadsheet doesn't know that Guimaraes has been sprinting for 3 games straight and has completely dead legs. The data just says, well, he hits the target 82% of the time historically.
And that is the exact blind spot of pure analytics. Data cannot measure the lactic acid in Bruno's legs in the 75th minute. It cannot measure the current surging confidence of Vinicius Jr.
Right.
Over-reliance on a spreadsheet blinds a manager to the contextual reality of the game unfolding right in front of them.
I am actively challenging this data is everything mindset, especially at the highest levels of management.
Yes.
I mean, if you are the manager, standing on the touchline, feeling the tension in the stadium, watching your midfield engine physically breaking down while your star winger is flying around,
Yeah.
at what point do you just throw out the iPad and let your hottest, most confident player take the shot? Isn't the whole point of paying a manager millions of dollars to read the context that a computer can't?
Absolutely. The best managers use data to prepare during the week, but they use their gut and situational awareness to execute on match day. If the context of the game diverges wildly from the sterile environment where the data was collected, you have to pivot. Ancelotti, perhaps out of a rigid commitment to modern methods, or maybe just wanting a shield against criticism, let the algorithm manage the most important 10 seconds of his tenure.
And it resulted in elimination.
It did.
So after the dust settled on the missed penalty and the reality of the exit really set in, the conversation immediately turned to accountability. And Ancelotti didn't point to his tactical choices. He had a very specific alibi ready to deploy injuries.
And to objectively analyze his defense, we do have to acknowledge that the injury list Brazil suffered was undeniably severe.
Oh, it was a bloodbath. Before the tournament even kicked off, they lost Eder Militao, Rodrigo, and Estevão Willian.
Massive losses.
Right out of the gate, you lose a starting right back and two highly dynamic, game-changing wingers that genuinely alters your tactical options.
Any team in the world would struggle to replace that specific profile of player seamlessly.
For sure. But then, during the tournament, the curse just accelerates. We already covered Neymar's calf injury. But then, Rafinha pulls his hamstring against Haiti in the group stage, and his tournament is over.
Right.
Soon after, Paqueta pulls his hamstring against Japan and has to be subbed off at the half. It was just an avalanche of muscle injuries.
It is a devastating list on paper. But this raises an important question. How much of this was genuinely unavoidable bad luck, and how much of it was basically self-inflicted by the architecture of the squad?
Right, because after the match, Ancelotti gives this highly optimistic quote. He says, "A defeat is the beginning of a new adventure. It is not an end. It is the start of a new cycle. I think the work we've done has been good."
Let's dissect the reality of those injuries first, though. When you look at hamstring pulls like Rafinha and Paqueta in the middle of a dense, high-heat tournament, you have to look at squad load management.
Right.
Because Ancelotti brought an older squad, and because he brought so few central midfielders, he literally could not rotate the team. The players who were fit had to play maximum minutes in every single match.
They're just run into the ground.
Exactly. When older, heavily minuted players are forced to play high-intensity football every 3 days without proper rest, hamstrings snap.
Yeah.
That isn't a cursed coincidence. That is predictable fragility. It is the direct cascading effect of the initial roster decisions.
You know, for you listeners out there, when we build a project at work or plan a major event in our lives and we build in absolutely zero redundancies, it always fails under stress.
Always.
And what do? We call it bad luck. We blame a server crash or the vendor falling through, when in reality, the failure was inevitable because of our own poor planning. The stress test just exposed the flawed architecture.
The bad luck merely illuminated the cracks that were already there.
Right. So knowing that the architecture was flawed from day one, what do you make of Ancelotti's quote? Calling an exit in the round of 16 to Norway, good work, and the start of a new cycle.
I mean,
Is that a manager who genuinely believes in a long-term vision? Or is that desperate PR from a man trying to save a doomed job? Because back in Brazil, the media is absolutely calling for his head.
it reads entirely like textbook self-preservation. When you manage a nation where the absolute baseline expectation is a World Cup final, a round of 16 exit is a catastrophic failure.
Virtually.
Furthermore, calling it the start of a new cycle is logically inconsistent. You cannot start a new cycle utilizing the relics of the old one.
Great point.
You don't build a new era on the backs of 34-year-olds while leaving your 24-year-old rising stars in London. The fans see right through that kind of rhetoric.
So what does this all mean? If we pull all these disparate threads together, we are looking at the perfect storm that sank a footballing giant.
Yeah, a perfect storm.
It was never just one catastrophic error. It It was a compounding series of minor compromises. You start with an aging defensive roster because you prioritize the comfort of veterans over the stamina of youth.
Right.
Then you make a politically motivated gamble on an injured Neymar, explicitly sacrificing the tactical necessity of an informed João Pedro.
And that lack of attacking depth forces your wingers to drop back, which in turn forces an incredibly thin midfield to cover impossible amounts of ground.
Because everyone is exhausted and overplayed, the hamstrings start snapping under the physical load, which you then conveniently blame on bad luck.
Exactly.
And finally, in the ultimate crucible moment of the tournament, instead of reading the room and trusting the player with the hot hand, you surrender your managerial instincts to a historical spreadsheet and let an exhausted midfielder miss the crucial penalty.
It truly is a masterclass in how a series of small, seemingly defensible decisions aggregate into a massive organizational collapse.
Whether you are leading a team, managing a project, or navigating a high-stakes crisis, the lesson from Brazil's exit is profound. The failure is rarely the missed penalty at the end.
No.
The failure is the 10 compromised decisions made weeks before the penalty was ever called.
It leaves us with a deeply provocative thought to ponder regarding the future of elite sports, too.
What's that?
Well, we live in a golden age of sports science. Cryotherapy, hyperbaric chambers, tailored nutrition. These advancements allow athletes to physically remain on the pitch well into their mid-30s.
True, they're playing way longer now.
Players like Casemiro or even legends in other sports can extend their careers years longer than previous generations. But just because sports science allows them to play doesn't mean they should be playing international tournament football.
That is the paradox right there. They are fit enough to pass the medical exams, but not resilient enough to actually survive the tournament format.
Exactly. This medical miracle has inadvertently created a sort of zombie veteran phenomenon.
Oh, I like that term.
The science keeps them just viable enough to justify their selection, creating this illusion of capability that traps managers in a loyalty loop. But they lack that final 5% of burst required to win at the highest level.
Wow.
We have to ask, has this blind loyalty to legendary players, enabled and prolonged by the miracles of modern sports science, actually become the single greatest liability for elite teams?
It's a scary thought for coaches.
The science extends their careers just long enough to block the next generation from taking the mantle.
That is a brilliant point for everyone to chew on. Modern medicine is essentially letting the ghosts of past tournaments haunt the current one. Incredible analysis.
Thanks.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive for today. For all of you out there, keep questioning the spreadsheets, trust your context over the algorithm when the pressure is really on, and always look at the decisions leading up to the crisis. Thanks for joining us, and we will catch you on the next one.